So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. I'm sorry, I'm laughing as I come out here because I was looking at that thumbnail that I had, and I was going, first of all, I didn't remember making it. It was late last night when I made it, and I went, oh yeah, but I saw his eyes were looking down. I remember taking forever to position the crest, the Aston Villa crest, to try and be right in your eye line. So as it popped up there, I started laughing at it. It took an inordinate amount of time going up and down to try to figure out where to put that crest, Josh.
Neil, I got to tell the people, I listen to nearly every single show, and I feel friends with you, despite us only communicating via this and X or Twitter every once in a while when, I bombard you with tweets and DMs, and you're, a busy man. So you might think, why is this American talking to me so often? But like, these are the people, you, everyone on Twitter, people in the comments, that I get to talk about this club and sport to, And it connects me so much closer to Aston Villa. So before we get going, I just want to say thank you to you. Thank you to Villa Twitter and everyone for giving me an outlet. So I'm not just boring my wife over and over and over talking about this, and she doesn't give a damn about it.
Well, welcome to the club, because I bore my wife to be, I bore my fiance over and over talking about Aston Villa. In fact, actually, I said, I was there. You know the guy, not Josh Norris. I had him on last year. He's works in the NFL, and they've got Dan Hansis, they've got Mark Sessler on their network now. And I was there like, I feel about yourself and Dan and Mark Sessler from NFL. We're NFL nerding out here at the moment, guys. Apologies. Yeah. Come back in maybe about 30 seconds. We'll get back onto Villa. But I feel like I was there around the NFL guys. I felt like I was their friends through their podcast. So now they're coming back on the Underdogs Network is absolutely, it made me smile from ear to ear, and I'm specifically looking forward to the 12th of August for it. So
I'm sure your audience, the audience that cares about the NFL and listens to their show, watches their show, there's a big overlap. Unfortunately, I did find out secondhand that apparently Dan is a baggie. And if I had known that, this, would have been shut down from the start. But maybe just like we pull every single one of their youth academy players, we can pull Dan over to the good side.
And you can definitely get, I think you can definitely get Mark Sessler on board with Aston Villa. I think you can. I think you have to. He was a Cleveland Browns fan. I know he's not. He's a lapsed Cleveland Browns fan now. But where's my head? I know I can't find it. I have a woodworking project I did during COVID of the Cleveland Browns helmet there that I was going to show, and you could tell him that you could show him this part to make him a Browns fan. But you all guys also have Bill Belichick on your
guy named Bill. Yes.
I think that one's going to hit with a lot of people. I think that's going. A lot of people's ears are pricking up there, going, "What? Bill Belichick's on
the thing about these big announcements, Neil, is everyone congratulates you, and then like the work actually just starts. Like you got to take the plane off, fly it, and then land it as well, because the announcements are great, but the content has to be good too. So yeah, it's a big year, man. We started this content network about 3.5 years ago, and I've been doing shows with Josh McCown and Colt McCoy and all these guys with Browns connections,
former Browns greats.
Yeah. And it's just grown and grown and grown, and that's not even talking about the NBA and MLB side. So it's man, it's fun. But I gotta say, Saturdays are my big escape, and Sundays with Villa, and it's just so much fun to have an exciting team like this, because I used to be a Panthers fan, and the more you work around football, the less attachment you have to an individual team. And all of that childlike enthusiasm I have now towards Aston Villa is just an obsession in a good way. And the excitement just keeps building and building and building now that we're a week away.
That's it, exactly. Yeah, and like you, Saturday is where I built up a nervous tension, and Sunday when I watch the Browns is like, it's less nervous tension and more sometimes embarrassment. But where it not so much anymore. But over the 10 previous years to this, it was. But anyway, NFL talk. That's been brilliant, and we love it. And everybody should go. If you're an NFL fan and you're not, you're not subscribed to the Underdogs. Well, first of all, I feel patronizing even saying that, but you should be, because it's absolutely great content for sure. And you get to see more and more of Josh. But Josh, you are obviously an Aston Villa fan. As you said, you interact with a lot of people on Twitter and so on. And it's been a good summer to be interacting with people, I think, on Twitter, because
lot to do.
there's a lot to do. But I feel myself as well, and I feel obviously, sometimes myself and Paddy were on the podcast. We're very much, somebody described us very, very aptly, I think, and neither of the two of us disagreed with it either. He said sometimes we're like a battery. You've got the positive terminal and you've got the negative terminal sometimes. And over the course of this off season, it's been very, very positive until about a week and a half ago, and then people started to kind of go, oh no, the season is nearly here, and we don't have this position sorted, and we don't have this position sorted, and I think that's okay. I have no problem with people having that, because that's good discourse, and I think it should be, because nothing is ever perfect. So it's not denigrating anybody for having that thought. But before we kind of dive into kind of depth charts and seeing what we're looking at with regards to where the 25 comes in the Champions League selection, let's talk about, I suppose, really your thoughts on what's gone on already, Josh. The players we've signed, and the preseason that we've had so far. Because I know that you had the pleasure of being in at the Leipzig game in Chicago.
This was New Jersey.
Oh, New Jersey. It was obviously, yes, yeah. It was New Jersey. Yeah. So first of all, tell me about the signings. What's your view on those?
Top down view. What's hilarious is I got into Football Manager back during the lockdown period, just I'm sure like everyone else did. And it's so funny the first year when you're building up a club and you qualify for Champions League, that is the year that you churn and change about 6 to 8 to 10 signings and bring in all these new guys and so on and so forth. And then when that actually happens to your club, they do the exact same thing in real life. So on some level, I was prepared for that. I also thought it could go in two totally different ways. Either we try to bring back, with health included, some of the same squad and do it that way, or it was this completely other direction. It's exciting because I think one of, again, the most exciting elements of following a football team is how the expectations you have for a player once they are signed, and then the journey that they go on and what they finish as. I mean, I think Morgan Rogers is like the perfect example of this recently, where, from the get-go, championship content creators were wondering why a Premier League club would spend this, just $9 million on him. But then immediately you see the tools and the aspects, and I try to pull those out whenever I watch, highlight clips or find, 7-minute recaps of games and so on and so forth. But I think at the end, Neil, they are going to have to play a different game this year in many aspects. And with that in mind, I wouldn't be surprised if the season is almost flipped as it was last year, where this year we have a bit of a slow start and a strong midpoint and finish, where things are kind of getting acclimated. Players are coming back from injury at the start, the first 2, 3, or 4 matches. And then once we hit our stride with the depth we have behind that as well, there might be no stopping us to. So it stinks because we finished last year slowly, and we might start slowly. We might not, but that's just where my thoughts are right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think my thoughts on the coming season are, I suppose, that look, we've had the best Premier League season we've ever had.
Right.
Well, from a finishing position point of view, and obviously in the modern era, when you're talking about Champions League and the money that comes in, like I shudder to think what would have happened to the club with PSR and all that if we didn't get the Champions League. Because yes, we had to fulfill this year, but next year coming down the line it would have been another juggernaut and so on and so forth. And I think that goes an awful long way. And it's sad that we have to think that way, but we do have to think that way as football fans now, unfortunately. But I think what you say is true with regards to the betting in period. Probably our 3 best players might get half an hour at the weekend against Dortmund, and that's Emi Martinez, Konza, and Ollie Watkins. And then you're into West Ham. West Ham were very buoyant, have a ton of signings, signings they feel good about. Max Kilman, Fulkrug up top, Crescencio Somerville. Yeah, and it looks like Jean-Claire Todibo as well. That's going to be coming in there at the centre back position.
And they
So
get Paqueta to still play and everything.
how he can still play there's going to be another podcast on that one. That one has me a bit hot under the collar with regards to that. But yeah, so with regards to a slow start, and that I suppose let's not forget we kind of had a slow start last season as well.
Oh yeah,
we slow start. First 4 games were okay, and then we had injuries after injuries. We had Buendia going down, we had Mings going down. That was a real hit. I think in the early start to this season, I think it will be similar, with the 3 guys coming back. And feel like that we won't really have those guys up to speed maybe until week 3, week 4. Now, saying that, we could be surprised Ollie Watkins could bang 3 goals in against Dortmund in a half hour. We take him off, and then he does it again against West Ham. We don't know what way that will go. But I'm not too worried. Like, I suppose this year will all be about living in the moment for Champions League, because do I say it or do I not say it? There's a high likelihood we won't be Champions League next season. And I think that, there's probably an 80% chance we won't be Champions League next season, a 20% chance that we will. So sometimes you gotta live in the moment and see how far you can go on it and throw your lot behind that. It's a huge piece for the club, don't get me wrong. And I want us to be in the Champions League. Maybe it's me being a small bit insulating myself, I suppose, from reality or whatever the case is. But with that in mind, I think, the makeup of the squad currently as well, I think that's kind of where my thoughts are that, look, if we had another good striker in there, look, if we had another good centre half in there, I might actually change my mind and go, yes, we can 100% compete on both fronts. But at the moment, we're an Ollie Watkins injury and Ezra Khan's injury away from massive uncertainty, I think. And
I think we're a Pal Torres injury away from uncertainty as well. Like, there's a couple of these positions where if a guy goes down, but you could say this for almost any squad, especially one that as soon as they get to this level for the first time, this is when it all builds. And to me, that's why I've loved this summer. They had like clear intentions, clear goals of what they wanted to.
Yeah.
Yes, of the checklist of get younger at certain spots, also magnify the size at many positions as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually been stunned, and I was thinking about this, and it certainly seems like the Gerd Trauda is going to be more likely than someone like Joe Gomez coming in. But I would have thought, a year ago at this point, if you told me if we were going to sign more English players than Spanish players, I would have leaned the Spanish direction. And we've barely done anything in that department. And it's all been a bunch of young English players, which I absolutely love. So it's been really cool to see, because to me, the most important thing is when a team has process, when there is team building, right? You see this in every league, in every sport. And for years at Villa, that has seemed disconnected here or there. But now it's so clear that these decisions are joined at the hip to go along with the commercial end as well. And with that in mind, we have full faith in the people making these decisions. I'm not going to bat 1,000, not going to hit on 100% of them, but just a clear process.
I'm glad you came in with that, because a lot of people might be going, what's he talking about batting 1,000? What does that mean? I don't know.
I'm just glad that there's a process here, and you can see it implemented. And with the coaching that we have, they will get up to speed, and it might happen quicker than I think. But if it doesn't happen in the first 2 matches, I'm not going to panic, even though I did probably panic a little bit the 5-1 to start last year.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to lose 5-1 against West Ham the first day of the season. I'm going to be very confident and say that. I don't think that's going to be the case. Now watch this be rolled over on one of those Paddy Power fan reaction things that they put out on social media afterwards, and then a few weeks later, and then 5-1 West Ham. But hey, look, if it is, we'll roll with the punches in that one. But I think that I'm really happy with the business we did this summer. I think you have to. I think for myself, my view on it is that we've been really creative. We've been really kind of Andrew Berry, Paul DePodesta, Cleveland Brownsian. We've looked at loopholes. We've not even loopholes. Sorry, we've looked at unexplored avenues. I think because a loophole makes it sound like there's something wrong with it and it should be closed. I don't think anything we've done this season, anything should be closed. I think it should be free reign for everyone to do it because it's within the rules and there's nothing stated. It's not a gray area. It's just simply. We play by the rules, and people didn't like it.
I think gray area is an okay term for it. Bill Belichick won Super Bowls and built teams by winning on the edges and winning by the fringes. And this can go in game plans. This can go in rule books. It can go in, building teams. And yes, we have found alleyways that other people might not have thought existed. And well, again, we are abiding by the rules. And it was pretty funny that 3 weeks or 2 week span where, Villa were the first ones to have these types of deals. And then we saw another team do it, another club do it, and another club do it. And then their fans kind of shut up and realized that, hey, this is kind of necessary for everyone in this area of the table to make it work. Let's talk about the squad though, because man, I'm
absolutely.
Even the young players. I'm kind of on this not anti-Chelsea kick, but I'm so glad I support a club like this and the decisions that they make. Whereas, it feels like whenever Chelsea spend 20 million, it doesn't matter. It's just a business acquisition for the Excel spreadsheet, and then they will have their best moments for another club, or be recycled or be replaced in the next cycle. Whereas whenever Villa spend, 9 million on a Serbian right back or 9 million on a championship player, like these are guys we can actually get excited about and see what their plan is for them in the future. And I'm excited about, again, the not gap, but the combination of what we have now between all these young guys and the new ones and the old ones, and how the puzzle pieces can all fit together.
Yeah, I think so. And Josh not only came to this podcast, brought himself to this podcast, he also came prepared, and he brought a spreadsheet. And we love spreadsheets in this podcast. So I'm going to share Josh's spreadsheet here now in one moment, and we're going to take a look at it because Josh has laid out, I suppose, really what his view for, positionally where we are, I suppose, and who we have and who's going to fill what within the squad. And we're going to have a quick chat about this because we're not finished in what we're doing yet with the squad building at the moment, and that's apparent, I think. But it's good to see where we are at the moment in areas, I suppose, that we can start to shift people. So let you talk through this, Josh.
Well, I want to ask you questions too, because this is just my brain. I can only speak to myself out loud about all this Villa stuff, and so now when I have someone like you to talk with this, a couple questions. Do you agree with the positioning of all of this, where it's mainly three at the back with one left back, the right wing a little bit further down? Again, just the generic positioning. Obviously, everything's fluid, but this is kind of what we look like moving forward.
Yeah, I think I do. Obviously, McGinn would be back further towards the central midfielders, and so will Buendia when they're there. But look, as I say, I think this is correct. I think for me, I think the second striker for Aston Villa.
Would you call it that? What would you term that position?
I think it is, because I like when people ask me what do Villa play and they say they play a 4-2-3-1. I'm like, you could probably go with a 4-4-2. Because a lot of times last year, Diaby was right up top beside Watkins. I think that second striker position is incredibly difficult to play for Unai Emery. I think it's a difficult position to play, because fans will think you're doing sweet naff all if you don't get the ball. But Unai Emery wants you to do a very specific thing and almost be selfless, but everything you do has to be 100% right. I think it's a high pressure role within the game plan. And I think when Unai Emery's looking at this, I think that player is somebody who he probably expects way more of than a lot of other players in the team. So it's an interesting role, and I think he gave Diaby that role, and I thought Diaby did fine last year, but I think one of the biggest problems with Diaby obviously was his physical stature. Sometimes people just blew past him and got into that intermediate area way too quickly, even though he was there for the press. Now there was certain instances where that wasn't the case. Against Bournemouth, I was there in Villa Park, and he had an absolute stormer pressing and tackling, winning the ball back high. He was brilliant in that game, but some other games he wasn't, and he was kind of blown past. And it's interesting to see what will happen with that second striker position, and all eyes are on that, because
Of course.
the person who comes in will likely play there and then move into Ollie Watkins' position if Ollie Watkins, and if the unthinkable, and I'm touching wood as I speak here, happens, the Ollie Watkins, though, for a concerted period of time, potentially that second striker would be somebody who has the ability to move in there, or Morgan Rogers. So yeah, I think everything there is correct in how we will set up, because that's how we've seen Unai Emery do it in the past.
So some points you just made. First, I do think we are going to miss aspects of Diaby, and mainly like the ball striking that he brings. And like there were elements, what was against Forest or Luton or the Wolves match, like when you just have the quality that he has, even if it wasn't sustained for 70 minutes in an entire match. But if we can coin a phrase from a former man, a moment of magic, he would bring it to either get us level or pull us ahead or those types of things. And in different elements of the season, when it can go from a draw to a win or a loss to a draw, you kind of need that 15 seconds, a singular moment, a singular play that, again, changed the outcome of the match. I'm not saying we didn't bring that in anywhere else, but he just had it, and we do not have that anymore. Part of me also thinks, Neil, that like Morgan Rogers' best position is going to be the second striker spot moving forward.
Me too.
And and I kind of saw this in his Middlesbrough tape, if I can call it tape, where just the stature he brings and how you can play it at his feet, the 1-2 touch that he does to link up, as we've just seen with these goals recently as well. Like having that with Ollie running behind and Bailey running behind. And so I'm not going to say it's going to turn into a logjam if we are able to bring in João Felix, because I think that these guys can move everywhere. And then the question is, if you bring in Felix, or if Morgan Rogers' best position is the second striker spot, where does John McGinn fit in all this as well? These are great questions to have, but I think it's only natural for Villa supporters to have these questions, because we've relied on such a small squad for so long that we have to like change our brains a little bit to be like, hey, options are good.
Yeah. And that's true. That's true. I think anybody you mentioned there, I think flexibility is king in Unai Emery's mind. And you know what? I don't do a whole lot of thinking about podcasts before I come on them. My thought process is very evident. When I'm on here, sometimes I can contradict myself and I can change my mind in the space of a half an hour of talking. And when I started talking about that second striker position is the most difficult position for Unai Emery, I also feel that he wants to have somebody who can play 2 or 3 different positions in that forward area to come in. So not only does it make it difficult for that person to play that second striker position, let's just say it is a João Felix or whoever he has up his sleeve from that point of view. And that's probably why João Felix probably appeals to him, because you've got a crossover there between himself and Morgan Rogers. Rogers can go inside. Felix can go out to the left-hand side. Played off the left for Barcelona all last year. You've got Jacob Ramsey, and Felix can go up top, and if Ollie can't go up top, Rogers can go up top if Ollie can't go up top, So you've got that. And for 60 million, I don't think it's a good allocation or usage of funds, but you do have that merry-go-round, I suppose, of 2 players who could go left center striker, left second striker, should I say. And that's really intriguing, because it keeps teams guessing, because while they can all go in those positions, they're very different players. As you said, Morgan Rogers is a head down, run straight type guy, and he's really good at it. He's a powerful runner, and he's got a really good shot. João Felix is a bit more finesse. He's not exactly a bulldozer of a guy that can build up a head of steam with the ball. So it presents a different aspect. Now, a lot of people would probably be sick of us talking about João Felix. And if he doesn't sign for Villa, there's going to be a lot of wasted minutes and a lot of podcasts for Aston Villa, I will tell you.
A lot of me watching full matches on YouTube and highlight tapes and everything else like that too, for sure. Even going back to those Chelsea days, which, by the way, I think is a bit underrated, what he did at Chelsea. But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, I think it's very underrated what he did at Barcelona last year. I think a lot of people just see it and dismiss it, and I think he was actually really good last year for Barcelona. But anyway, that's, as I say, if he signs, we can talk all about that. But it's an interesting structure. It's an interesting, when you put everybody's names down on paper here. There's an argument to be made. We don't need anyone, with who we have in the squad. We genuinely, if the squad was to go out the way it is now, maybe you sell a Moreno, maybe you sell a Dendoncker, the squad is fine. From a positional point of view and from cover, we don't need anyone, I don't think.
I think in those front four, you can easily say that, and obviously in the midfield as well. The one position, just thinking about it, that does feel light is this back half, especially as it feels that at halftime after the red card, that Unai, and I think understandably, is just totally done with Diego Carlos, and I'm sure we'll get news on that within the next 48 hours. You asked me at the start what I thought about these signings. To me, the number one aspect when I was thinking about, hey, this team that did so well, and it's amazing that a team can finish fourth and you still can spot in your own eyes areas of improvement, were the two fullback positions for me. Because when we started facing these low blocks, Neil, I felt like some of the answers could come from slightly more creative or dynamic fullbacks. And obviously so much of that comes from the left back. And I think Ian Maatsen is going to be so much fun to watch. Like there was a match, and I know we haven't seen it so far, but like the first 25 minutes against Darmstadt, where he was inverting inside. And we haven't seen that at all from an Unai Emery-led squad. So maybe that's something that he utilizes more so, or at some point this season. But if not, he just has this athletic ability to really get down the wing, and then I think be a exciting, energetic presence on like the elbow of the box a little bit too, because we've seen him take plenty of shots from there. So like, again, just that addition, I think, is going to give us some answers to the questions that we faced over and over and over. But then that leaves us the right back position too.
Yeah. Ian Maatsen is it's actually interesting because we've seen hardly nothing of him in preseason either. We've seen him for half an hour here or there. I think he gets the start probably against Dortmund, or at least he gets a decent amount of playing time, because I think that's what he needs. But yeah, he's really like, there's times when I'm just wondering, do I even have him on my bloody other list? I'm not even sure.
But Neil, I wouldn't be surprised against West Ham and Arsenal if he's not the starter. Like as we saw last year, against Newcastle, Powell wasn't going to be the starter. I wouldn't be surprised if they take it slowly, despite him being such a big addition, and go with the tried and true nature of people that understand the systems in the first two matches.
Yeah. That's probably the safer bet to do. Obviously a lot of conversation you mentioned there about the right back position. A lot of conversation about Nedeljkovic has been really impressive.
Don't get me started.
This preseason, just physically, you hear me talk about, and I've borrowed a lot of the language I use about what the players that we've signed. I've borrowed it from American sports, but you've tangibles and intangibles, and there's a height, weight, speed guys in the NFL, and Nedeljkovic looks like a height, weight, speed guy for a right back, for a defender. He just seems to be just an athletic freak, as was, Rodgers is athletically, he's big, he's strong, there's everything about him. Same with Duran,
obviously.
Onana, exactly. Yeah. So the things that you can't teach a player to do, it seems to be what these guys have gone out and looked for. But obviously the players that they brought in are talented as well, which is an added bonus. I think, and just like you mentioned with Maatsen, maybe it won't be the starter for the first couple of games of the season. I think it's nailed on. Matty Cash starts against West Ham. I think it has to be nailed on. Much and all as Nedeljkovic gets me out of my seat and he gets my juices flowing. He's 19 years of age.
Yeah.
And he will have a huge future. And I expect at the end of the year, they will be our two fullbacks, and I think it's not controversial to say that, because I think everybody deep down will probably expect that. But obviously, you've got Gertrude and all those guys that are potentially coming through the gate as well, which we'll talk about in a moment. But it is interesting. I think everybody's mind at the moment, like if we don't sell John Durant, I'm okay to keep him. I'm okay to let water go under the bridge and let him go in, score his 8-9 goals this season and keep his value high. A lot of people were saying, get him in the under 23s. All that does is affect Aston Villa. You play him, you let him score goals. If he scores goals, his value goes up. somebody will spend that 40 million on him next year, if they won't spend it this year. And if we get to keep somebody who's scoring goals and is worth 40 million, that's a massive plus for us.
Yeah.
I think Archer is going to be the one to be sold up there. I think Archer, I just have it. I always felt that if someone like a Solanke went, that Archer would be the man that they would look at. Bournemouth would look at somebody like Archer, or Ipswich would look at somebody like Archer, or whatever the case would be. So it's a really interesting one in that aspect for up top. And I like what you're doing here. You're moving guys around, the people who we think potentially will be sold. Because I think Dendoncker as well. I've got a hypothesis out there as well. I think Dendoncker is prime fishing bait to get somebody to part with somebody and take Dendoncker as part of the deal, like we've done with Douglas Luiz, like we've done with other deals previously this year. Why would we do them already and not revisit them again if we have the opportunity? I just think it makes so much sense, because he may not fit in our system. And yes, he may not have played very well for a very dysfunctional Napoli team last year, which, to be honest with you, he was out of his mind to go there. There are a lot, like, he's still a Belgian international that a lot of teams will take a massive punt on him and will definitely want him because he's not a bad player.
The thing about, and I'm just going to call him Costa, Nedeljkovic. Anyways, I love Aston Villa. Okay, I feel like all of us, even in the chat, do not get upset with me, that we can all love a club and yet have extreme concerns. I will not say hatred, but extreme concerns about a player every single time they touch the field. For me, that's Matty Cash every single time. I have to be honest. And I really dislike how he, every time he gets the ball, it's like a curl route. He'll run 5 steps up, turn back around, look back to pass it, rather than what we've seen with Costa, where it's just free flowing, flying. And look, maybe these are responsibilities. Maybe it's not wanting to make a mistake, so on and so forth. But again, as we face these low blocks, and by the way, I think that might be an area where we miss Douglas Luiz the most on the inside, is his ability to just control the ball and dribble and beat one man, to then break down the box, that where we can do a 1-2-3 and then create a shot off of that. Are these walls that we're going to face more and more and more as we become one of these better and better clubs. And I just think, like, again, the two areas we can really improve that is left back, like we talked about, and I think we did, and it's right back. And I think the young guy will be more beneficial in that department. But I'm with you that, like, if it's stability in the first few matches, Matty Cash will start those. And I mean, it's, we were linked to right backs and center backs and all this type of stuff throughout the summer. It's on my radar that if we do bring in a new focused right back who has some center back experience, but that does point me in the direction of, hey, in this window with who was available and who we liked, Unai's preference is going to be Ezri Konsa as center back versus as a right back. That's fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. I think and I said it in the Gertrude piece I did yesterday. I think that is the biggest tell that he wants Ezri Konsa as a centre half. Because while Gertrude can play centre back, he played 41 games last year at right back for Feyenoord, and he did literally, like, everything Konsa did, he did at right back. And I think if you could put Konsa into a photocopier and you could come out as a fullback that is the same, once again, the intangibles, the height, weight, speed, passing ability, all that kind of stuff, Gertrude comes out the other end. He's the bit that comes out of the reprographics unit of the photocopier. And look, when that's staring you in the face, and once again, we also look, I'm going to ignite the rumor mill as well. Feyenoord are I know they're selling. Feyenoord seem to be selling. Is it David Hanko, the centre half, to Atletico Madrid? But also they were also looking at last night. It broke that they're looking to sign Septon. Denberg, the Liverpool centre half who was on loan in Germany this year. And he is seen to be a replacement potentially for Gertrude, because he can play that centre back, right back position. I don't know a whole pile about him, so I'm not going to wax lyrically about him. but just things are beginning to fall into place.
Totally.
For her through the play, like it breaks from Fabrizio Romano. He doesn't usually put out frivolous stuff. Yes, he gets some stuff wrong, but he gets 90% of stuff right, and like everybody can't. There's no such thing as perfection. So yeah, so there's stuff there as well. I think if he comes in, if Hertruda comes in, I think Mario Hermosa doesn't come in.
Yeah,
because I think Kanza, Torres, Mings, and then potentially Hertruda, if you need to play him as a centre back, is there as well. I
Isn't
think
it odd for you? I know we've been hearing about Hermosa's name for, I mean, it feels like months now, right? Isn't it odd to you? We have a week to go. He could have been, I mean, it's not just us, it's on other clubs, you know, that like we have a week left until season starts, and like he has been injured in any of these training camps. Oh, he has? Okay, I did not know.
Yeah, he has been injured. Because I was the same, and it was Paddy said it to me. Paddy said that he was injured at the back end of last season, and I didn't know that either. But sorry, when I open up Twitter and I see 14 notifications, and then I realize it's because Juju Smith-Schuster was let go from the Patriots, and I'm going, what the hell is this doing on my timeline? Anyway, yeah, so it's so that centre back position is still in flux. Maybe there's one person to come in, maybe there's two people to come in there. I just want to go back on something about Matty Cash, because I see it in the comments there from a couple of people there as well about that. I'm not as down on Matty Cash as everybody else is. I think Matty Cash is perfectly is Premier League centre back. I've no problem starting him for the whole lot of this season. I don't particularly think we need to massively upgrade on him. I think a lot of the biggest problems with Matty Cash last year was being playing that right winger position. I thought he looked like a fish out of water there, which is completely understandable too. Like, but as you said, with regards to Matty Cash, I think he's not everybody's cup of tea, and I think that's fine. But for me, I think I'd have no problem starting him there and having Nedeljkovic to come in at right back if it is needed. If your man here Truda does come in, it's going to put real pressure. It's like, what do we do at right back? Because are we overinflated there, or what do we need to do? Like, if we have this guy who's an auxiliary centre back that's playing at right back, you know. Why didn't we just go away and buy a centre back and let our right backs do their thing at right back and have an actual competition in that centre back position? Because as you've laid it out here, you've Torres and you've got Mings who's coming back from a bad injury.
And that's one thing I want to just bring up is whenever these players have injuries, and we saw at the start of last year, you know, and we saw it the year before with Diego Carlos, it's so natural for us to revert to when we play FIFA or we play Football Manager, we play all these games, and it says like, oh, he'll be on the shelf for 6 to 9 months. And then as soon as they come back, you think they're like 100% back up to speed. It obviously doesn't happen with that. And it's so clear that Buendia's ACL was a clean ACL versus a multi-ligament ACL plus other issues with Tyrone's knee. And it just takes time. And so, and I would love to ask you this question, but my biggest fear, and again, knock on wood, but I think it's fair to ask these questions because these are if-then statements. What if something does? Because we saw a portion of last season where Pau Torres missed matches and then he came back and still played hurt. If he goes down right now, I mean, that's like Luka Dean playing left center back, right?
I probably think I have a different take. I think you have Onana playing at centre back.
You really think that they would spend that much on playing a midfielder
in a massive emergency? If let's just say Pau Torres gets injured first 10 minutes against West Ham, you're not springing Tyrone Mings, I don't think.
No. I agree that's my point, that maybe if it happened in November or December or these types of things, that's when Tyrone potentially come back. I'm talking about Mings. A very early season miss 3 or 4 weeks type thing. That's like the answer to the question of my biggest fear that I don't think we have one to right now.
And then that kind of goes back to what I was saying there a while ago is Hertruda like if somebody like Hertruda comes in, or is that just a smokescreen? And Joe Gomez is the guy you want, because Joe Gomez can play either centre back, he can play left back, he can play right back. He literally is that swing player that can go right across that back line, no problem. And I think myself, I'd feel more comfortable having a Joe Gomez. Sorry, I don't mean this in the Hertruda as a comparison between the two before people.
We want both, Neil. That's what we really want is both.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. Give me both. Or give me your Hermosa and Hertruda. Yeah, but what I'm saying is squad limitations, numbers, which we're going to get onto in a moment, and also PSR limitations are going to dictate. Hermosa is going to be looking like for a bag of cash, you know. it would be great if we could do an NFL side thing and say, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to give you 15 million up front as a signing on fee, and we're going to pay you 15 grand a year then after that.
Right.
I don't know whether you could do something. Hey, I don't see any reason why you couldn't do something like that. I don't see any reason why you couldn't do something like that. Maybe nobody's tried it before, but I trust this brain trust to come up with something like that. But exactly, and in a roundabout way, Josh, what I was getting at was, I think we might even need 2 in there. But then what does that say? I then think if we do get to it, if we do get 2 in there, does Bogart go on loan? I think that's probably what happens, and then we keep the rest of the players that are there. I think Moreno is the odd man out on the left-hand side.
I agree. I almost want to move him down to this side in the sold list, because I actually think, and we haven't seen him there for a single second, so maybe this is the wrong opinion, but I wouldn't be surprised if like the long-term view is to move him down to here. Eiling Jr. down to left back. But you might disagree with that.
I just haven't seen him play. Maybe the long-term view, but I just haven't seen him play there in the off season.
Not a second of it, right?
And he's somebody that I want people to kind of put a pin in, because we're going to chat about him in a moment as well, because we'll chat about him in a moment when we get on to talking about something else. The other area I want to chat a small little bit with you about is goalkeeper. Goalkeeper. So you've named 3 goalkeepers here. I'm going to Ali Ziyech, I think, is going to have a say in who is in that rotation. I'm going to say it. I've always been on the train whereby I never thought we were going to buy another backup goalkeeper, and people didn't like me saying that. The reason I said it is Unai didn't see it as an issue last season, and Martinez was out. I just don't think he sees it as an issue this season. I could be wrong. I could really be wrong on that. But I just, basically, what I go on is, what have I seen that gives me an inkling? It's not that I don't want another goalkeeper. By all means, go away and get the best second goalkeeper you possibly can. I'm just trying to say what I think is going to happen here. And I don't think we're going to see another goalkeeper. I think we're going to go into it. And the reason that I say about Ali Ziyech there is, I think that he will be up and in and around squads more than we think this year.
Interesting.
For another reason, and we'll talk about it in a moment. I think midfield is probably pretty much in lockdown.
Just
I don't think
real quick on the goalkeeper part. I think one reason why some of the attacking outputs in America look so dreadful was because of the lack of distribution in the build-up from the goalkeeper. And when that's completely removed, you almost lose an entire player that can access different areas of the field. And I think we did see that from Joe Gauchi in this last matchup against Bilbao, right? That there was a bit more of that, and it helped out the entire aspect of it. That's for sure. Let's talk about midfield, because while we got somewhat negative on the what happened if X, Y, or Z missed on the back line, at some point this year, Neil, we are going to be loaded with riches.
Absolutely.
For these 2/3 positions in center mid. And once we are loaded with riches, I don't know how all of them are going to get playing time.
Which is a good point, because I think it's I think as at Aston Villa, we've been used to having a best 11 for years and years. And I think we're going to have to get used to, the likes of John McGinn not playing 90 minutes every game. The likes of, and I know McGinn has been substituted before, but that was when he wasn't really going well. But I think players will have their minutes managed to keep them at optimal levels. Last year was a unicorn. And going back to what we said at the start, that, the high likelihood is we don't get Champions League, because last year was a unicorn in a lot of the ways, whereby we used so little players and we bled every last little bit of talent out of every player because of the injury situations we had.
And many of the other top clubs around us really did not finish the season on a high note at all, or had terrible midpoints of the season too, talking Spurs and Chelsea and Man U and all these. So we really lacked competition for that 4th spot in the end.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the engine room of midfield is somewhere where Unai just doesn't want us to be passive. He doesn't want us to be passive in there. So I think he'd want us. And even though you've got McGinn in that second striker role, I think in my heart of hearts, I think he's a central midfielder. Obviously, I like him where you have him there. I don't want you to move him from there, because at this moment in time, that's where he's playing. That's where he's starting for us, I think. because I think our central midfield starting partnership against West Ham is Yuri Tielemans and Onana. And I think
Okay.
I think it's not even close.
Let's play an
That's it.
exercise though. Then, okay. Let's say we get to Everton on September 14th. Okay.
Yeah.
By that time, and again, this is just fantasy land, right? I need to keep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we just see McGinn replace Yuri here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's that cutthroat. And not because Yuri's been bad or anything like that. Jesus, Yuri Tielemans, that ball through to
the one touch
Jacob
passes
Ramsey
that he and Onana were playing. I mean, for such a big man, Amadou Onana, and the way that he is able just to tap it off his feet is something that I don't think we saw that much of. And I love the points you bring up all the time when bringing up statistics with players, that environment dictates this so often. That Onana's, to me, already showing so much of the build-up features and ball possession versus what Everton did. And I mean, again, for such a big man, he has pillowy feet where it's just ball to him and it just ricochets off into the perfect placement for someone else.
Yeah. And what we haven't seen an awful lot of Onana, and he tried it once or twice against Bilbao, was Onana's really good at getting that diagonal ball to fullbacks.
Yep.
He's really good at it. And he tried one to, I think it must have been Cash that started, and the defender cut it out.
Yep.
But you know, I'm so excited about him. He just looks huge in the field. He's an imposing character, and he gets around the field as well. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a bit more of a free rein than he did under Sean Dyche and the previous Everton managers as well. But I think that himself and McGinn in there will have incredible work rate. They'll have the size of Onana. And then when Boubacar Kamara comes back, maybe we start talking about Kamara being a centre back. Who knows?
That's the next question. Okay. What if we get to February? Okay. Everything's going swimmingly. Everything looks good. Yet when we said things tailed off last year and kind of the start of it was Boubacar Kamara leaving the lineup and he comes back. Can you play Kamara and Onana next to each other? And again, these are great problems to have. But if that's the case, it always feels like when John McGinn is out of the lineup, things go down a level. Maybe that's not the case now with how many riches that we do have and how many great players we do have. And at some point we do have to move on from him. But like, if that's the case, someone's going to get left out here.
Oh, and you know, they're good problems to have. You know, we haven't even spoke about Ross Barkley. Ross Barkley, Luton Town's player of the season, nearly goes to the Euros with England, and we haven't even spoken about him. We have such depth, and when Kamara comes back, potentially he is spoken about as being that right-sided centre-back cover for Konza if anything should ever happen.
Which he moved in that position sometimes when Cash would move up. You know, he would go back.
He started out his career as a centre-half, you know, at Marseille. So there's good problems we have here. Someone asked about Barnechea if we found out why he wasn't in the squad the last day. I haven't heard sight nor sound of that. I hope that gets asked of Unai.
Because he has been so fascinating to watch and impressive.
Very dynamic,
to watch. I mean, I just talked about Onana with the passes that he receives and then it's out. I mean, the game slows down with Barnechea and how he receives it, and then he's looking to spray it out to the right wing or to the left wing. And that's not a common thing, just with the game to be unfazed with how quickly everything's moving. And from the first time you saw him in a new environment and a new system and new players, he was already doing that. And you'd only expect that to improve the more time he spends around everyone.
And I think Barnechea is your heir apparent to Douglas Luiz. I think that's like, so people say we haven't replaced him. I said maybe we didn't replace him for this year. Maybe we've replaced him by committee with regards to Yuri, McGinn, Barkley. I think Barnechea is going to be the guy they're going to look to step up. And yes, he is 23, but he's had a stunted growth path, I suppose, for 2 years from when he, well, 3 years, well, 2 years really from when he was 20 to 22. And I think that he's somebody who's going to contribute an awful lot. In the comments here as well, Josh, people are asking who's going to take penalties.
It's a great question. Yuri?
I think it's as obvious as the nose in my face, and it's Morgan Rogers.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like there's literally, I look at it and I go, there's only one person to take penalties, and it's Morgan Rogers for me.
Well, and he's only $5 million on FPL. So
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
anyone
So
listen.
that's my thing. So I think it's been a really good exercise to see who we have, and I suppose my starting 11 wouldn't be too dissimilar to yours. I think Martinez in goals, Torres and Konza the two centre halves with Dina and Cash. This is my opening day against West Ham to start in the two full back positions. Yuri and Onana, with Rogers, McGinn, Bailey, and Ollie up front. And I think, heart to hearts, a lot of people would that's the safe selection. And I think that's the selection he will go with. And we've got great bullets in reserve there with the likes of Ramsey, Buendia, Philogene, Barkley, yeah, like Matson, Nedeljkovic. We've got great bullets in the chamber there as well if we need to bring it on. So
we can make a triple sub, a quadruple sub. I mean, we have those types of players now. Again, my one question is, because now we are going to be considered, we're going to get everyone's best shot every single time we go on the field, right? And because of that, opposing managers are going to face us when they're lower down the table with these low blocks and these walls. And I felt we had major issues with that last year at times. And where Douglas Luiz could beat one man, one person with a dribble or a touch or get around them, I do wonder if we have that in the midfield, or if who is going to replace that. I kind of think Ross Barkley can do that, but we're not including him obviously in our starting lineups.
No, and I think Douglas. Think what we will see differently in the midfield position at the moment is Douglas Luiz was brilliant at playing triangles around players, and that's why he always looked like he had that one touch to get past the mid block or anything like that. It's up to somebody, and I will say it's up to somebody to step up to the plate here. Yeah. I don't know who's going to do that, and that's an exciting thing for me as well as a worrying thing. But it's up to somebody to step up to the plate. So it's really interesting. We've done this exercise where we've looked at everybody in their positions and the depth chart that we would have here. But I'm going to remove this off the screen for a moment, and I'm going to bring up the next piece. And this is what I think my 25 is going to be for the Champions League, because we have to think about there are parameters, and I am open to massive interpretation for this one, should I say, because I think that I've interpreted the rules correctly. I'm just going to zoom in there so people can maybe see it. I think I've interpreted the rules correctly. Okay, so we need to have 25 players. We need to have X amount of players that are homegrown, which means trained within the association, and we need to have club trained players in here as well. So I'll bring everybody's mind back to when I said put a pin in Ali Ziyech, because you'll notice he's one of the guys I have there in the goalkeeping department there. So I think the three goalkeepers that Emi Martinez will name are Martinez, Gauci, and Ziyech. I'll go back to my old analogy. It's like in NFL, and I know I'm bringing up an awful lot of NFL stuff, but if your quarterback is injured, then then the next man up ain't going to be a patch him. It's very rare. Okay, not everybody's a Nick Foles for the Philadelphia Eagles from years ago. You've got a problem if your quarterback is injured, and it's the same if your goalkeeper is injured. No matter who you bring in, it's not going to be as good as Emi Martinez. I should preface that. There are other teams that will have. Ramsdale comes in for Rhea. Okay, it's much of a muchness. You've got two good goalkeepers there. Right. Whereas Martinez is so good, no matter who we get, isn't going to be at his level anyway. And I prefer Joe Gauci to stay there. And I think this is going to be the same. I don't think Olsen gets put in the Champions League squad, is what I'm trying to say here. And it serves us to two ends. Ziyech gets brought in there because he's club trained by Aston Villa. He's been here for 2 consecutive years, or for 3 years, which includes 1 year of a loan. So he qualifies as a club trained player. That's probably the number one piece where people look at it and go, whoa, wouldn't have expected him to be added in there. But you have to name 3 goalkeepers, and I think it's a no-brainer to name him in there and have him as that third goalkeeper, hoping that you never have to use him.
And it makes sense to me, while we hear so many positive and glowing reports of the upside of the 2 goalkeepers we did move on, that they were the ones moved on and he was not, if this is the reason for that.
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I think so. The back line, or the defenders, kind of pick themselves. You've got Cash, who's association trained through Forest and so on. Konza trained through Charlton and Brentford. Ned is in there. Mings, Pau, Dina, Matson, and I have new defender in there because I think we will have a new defender. Obviously,
so does Mings not count as association trained?
Sorry, he does.
He does.
No, he does. He does. You're right. He does. I just haven't marked him in there as that. So there we go. I'm
just asking questions. I'm the audience here.
You're absolutely fine. I actually think this man does too.
He probably does.
I actually think Emi Martinez, but I've left him out to be on the safe side. I think that's a pretty fair reflection, because I think Moreno and Diego Carlos, as I've mentioned over here, so Moreno and Diego Carlos are the 2 guys. They're gone. I think they're gone or they're not going to be named because we have too much fluff in the left back position. So I think that's pretty fair to say.
Thank you for your service.
Exactly. Midfield, then I have added Buendia, and this is probably another bone of contention for a lot of people. I've added Buendia, but I've left out Samuel Elling Jr. from the Champions League squad. I think if we bring in, I think we have to. I just don't think there's a way, because if you look at it here, we have to include, and I've included Bogart here in midfield. I probably should have included him as a defender because he's club trained.
Yeah.
We have to name 4 of these guys, otherwise we lose the squad space.
Right.
There's a reason he's signing a new contract. There's a reason he's been given time. He's going to be named in the Champions League. I would be blown away if he's not named in the Champions League B squad.
And it's either him or Archer, basically, that needs to stay because of the club train.
Absolutely, 100%, exactly, and that's why I have down here Duran/Archer. I think we're only keeping one of them, or maybe none of them, but I don't think we're going to sign 2 attacking players. I personally think Archer is. I think now Solanke, it's just popped up my phone. Solanke has gone to Spurs. I think we see movement on Archer. I don't want him to go. Really like him. Want him to stay around. There was a rumor previously that was what was going to happen, and part A of the plan has happened from a Bournemouth point of view. I don't see why part B wouldn't happen.
Well, and striker like goalie is one of those onesie positions where once one moves, the dominoes start falling a little bit, right? Yeah, absolutely. Exactly, for sure. So I think, yes, the big pieces here are Kamara won't be named because he's not going to return until after Christmas. Then Donker, I think, will be sold or will be making a deal. So the 2 big guys here at the top, I think that would be not shockers, but people would raise eyebrows, is Robin Olsen and Samuel Elling Jr. It's harsh on the young man in Samuel Elling Jr. Really
here.
harsh.
Maybe he gets in and Buendia doesn't. Maybe if Buendia doesn't prove his fitness between now and the start of the season, we'll know tomorrow, I suppose, really, when we see the Dortmund game. Maybe that becomes an issue. Somebody's going to have to lose out there, provided we don't sell both Duran and Archer. If we sell both Duran and Archer, Samuel Elling Jr. is back in again. And maybe that does happen. Maybe we send both of those guys and maybe he comes back in and we do go to plan to what the plan is at the moment of Morgan Rogers being the next guy up to play that centre forward position with Ramsey and Elling Jr. Playing in his stead. And if Felix signs, Felix can move over there as well. So this is just my kind of thoughts on at the moment until I see anything different.
A couple
what do you think?
Variations. Okay.
Yes.
I think there's a chance if we bring in Haltruda, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or Gertruda.
Yes. Gertruda. Yeah.
That do we need 3 right backs that play in the back 3? So if the youngest guy of that entire back line, I don't want him to go on loan, but would it be unreasonable for Ned to go on loan in that regard? I don't want him to, because I think by the end of the year, like what you're saying, he will play a ton and maybe even earlier than, I would want him earlier than Unai, but I think that's a possibility.
I think there'll be pickets at Villa Park if Ned goes on loan.
Okay. Then the other aspect is, and we have no news on this, but we just talked about how loaded Villa is in the midfield, and it will only get even more loaded when Boubacar Kamara comes back, hopefully in January. This would incite pickets as well. We have loved what we've seen Barrenechea during preseason, but that's also one that would make sense on a loan as well.
Yeah, I think you prefer to be looking at players from midfield than looking for them, because I think we will see lots of churn and rotation in midfield, because last year we were to our bare bones on that. But you're right. I think they are the 2 players you look at and you go, guys, do you fancy playing minutes or do you fancy learning your trade under me? Given the fact that you've got 4 years left on your contract after this year with us, and we want to keep you. We want to give you a second contract and a third contract.
Final question. Is there something where if a player is U21 that they don't count against the number?
That's for the Premier League squad list. Yes. So
not for Champions League.
This is just for Champions League, yeah. So that's why all the guys on the right-hand side, if we don't sell them, they all come back into contention for the Premier League if needs be. And that, so that's why I always thought if we signed another striker on top of Felix, it would be a young guy. Those guys are kind of going out of fashion at the moment. Not out of fashion, but so many of them have moved that they're all at Chelsea. at the minute. So
Just an insane club.
Yeah, so maybe Rory Wilson gets the call up. Maybe that guy Kocher that we've signed from Sunderland gets the call up. I don't know. They're both incredibly young. But I suppose that's a different one. That's that. But yes, they do.
Indiana Vasilev gets the call up.
Indiana Vasilev playing with LA. Is it no Miami? Inter Miami, I think at the moment.
Is he?
It or LA?
I
think he's playing with
the name rang a bell when we in our most dire moments.
Exactly.
This is fascinating. This is fascinating because, to be honest, it was so interesting when we were doing the Douglas Luiz deal that Illing Jr. was there and was the number one name for that entire conversation, right?
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I think it's fair to say that we've been a little more excited about what Enzo has shown. And I don't know if it's the natural spot that Sam has been playing in preseason that he will for the full time in the future. But it seems like he was, and maybe it's because of the English background and so on and so forth, but that he was like the number one name that we have to get him back in this.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there as well. It could be a lot to do about nothing with regards to João Felix, because realistically, we probably don't need him where we are in the squad, considering the amount of players who can play that second striker. Yeah, he'd be great. Maybe we go for that. Maybe we go for an actual striker, and if we can't do a deal, but Unai seems to love him, and who are we to say otherwise when Unai says so? Josh, I've kept you for an hour.
I could go for
5. I could have kept you for 5, but I am getting text messages to put my little girl to bed, so I do have to cut this one short. But it's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Josh. I love getting the perspective of guys that are so immersed in other sports. Obviously, that translates when you look towards football as well. Because like you, I take a lot of the statistical stuff and the analysis I do in soccer, which I will call it soccer because we're talking about American football. Not so here we've got Gaelic football, so apologies to anybody who's offended by me calling it soccer, but I take a lot of that kind of all the scouting I do with football, I initially started doing on American football stuff, and then I went away and I did a soccer scouting course and so on, and here we are today. So I would never have got into the statistical side of soccer only for American football, and I think it's very easy to kind of to develop a kind of a rational viewpoints, I suppose, towards certain elements of play and so on if you do immerse yourself in other sports.
And you kind of do pick out like different traits and skills. You can look at someone who you believe is well-rounded. Yes. But in the day, it's about like, hey, where does this player win? Where do they succeed? And how is the manager going to use him in that way and elevate those traits? And I think you pick those up in American football, and then as Villa have added certain players, I look for those in these players as well.
Absolutely, yeah, and in the world of data-driven scouting, now is probably the time to embrace it as well. But Josh, listen, thank you so much for popping on. I really, really appreciate it. For everybody, I will pop it back up there again. If you're not following Josh, you need to follow him at Josh Norris, and also you need to follow the Underdogs Network on YouTube and on Twitter as well. If you're anyway involved in American football or you follow a team, you won't do much better than this. These guys are taking over the world of the NFL at the moment. Since NFL media have cut all our best staff, there's only one place to go, and that's to this guy. Go over there to those guys, because they're the hipster place to be at the moment, and they're doing some great stuff. So Josh, thank you so much, because I know you've got a ton to do. Season is starting soon in the NFL. You're just off draft season, and I'm sure you could be doing a million one better things than chatting Villa to me today. So I really appreciate it.
I again, just quickly will say thank you to everyone in the chat, everyone on Villa Twitter. I have no outlet for all these thoughts and waking up at 4 a.m. to check if something's broken overnight. And this is the place for me. So I listen to so many shows, so many pieces of content. Neil, you're at the top of the list. Love how you think about the game. And I just appreciate the conversation that we all have. So thank you for including someone like me in all this. I appreciate it.
Not at all. Absolutely. Anytime. You might be getting more calls from me more often to come on the podcast, Josh, because I always say it's been too long whenever you come back on. I absolutely mean it. But To everybody as well here, we will be back with Team Sheet Tantrum tomorrow and post-match podcast. If anything breaks over the course of the rest of the evening today, I will be back on to discuss that too. But thanks again to Josh. Thanks again. You're here also as well. Yeah. Myself and Josh can be back again. But thanks again to everybody who watches and gives us the time, and hours an awful long time to stick listening to anyone. So I really appreciate that. We will be back tomorrow as well. And in the meantime, everyone stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa. Oh, I thought you were going to say up the Villa too, Josh.
Up the Villa.